And Russian President Vladimir Putin personally respects African leaders like President Ibrahim Traoré. However, in all this, we hear Western propaganda that Russia is trying to replace the neo-colonial European countries in Africa. Sometimes, even the people of Africa feel suspicious until they realize the truth. Russia never colonized Africa. During the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885, European countries drew lines on the African map and decided for themselves which colonial power would have which African country. The fate of a continent was decided by foreigners. However, in all that, Russia was absent. It never colonized Africa, nor did it want its resources. So, expecting today that Russia wants colonial influence in Africa is against history. But a question arises: why did Russia never colonize Africa? In this video, let's find out. In 1884, representatives from 13 European countries and the United States gathered in Berlin under the invitation of German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. But this wasn't some noble summit for peace or diplomacy. It was a cold, calculated meeting with one goal: divide Africa among themselves without firing a shot at each other. This event became known as the Berlin Conference, and it was the beginning of the so-called Scramble for Africa, a dark chapter where the entire continent was divided like slices of cake with no African voice in the room. Colonial powers, including Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, and Portugal, claimed vast regions of Africa on maps as though they were moving pieces on a board game. They weren't interested in borders that respected ethnic groups, languages, or kingdoms. They simply drew lines, many of which remain to this day, that split entire communities and created fragile, unstable states that have struggled with conflict ever since. However, in all this, one European giant was absent: Russia. The country, despite its status as a major empire, did not participate in this land grab. It didn't claim a colony, didn't redraw maps, and didn't establish plantations or forced labor systems on African soil. This absence wasn't due to ignorance or indifference. Russia was aware of Africa's strategic and economic value, but it stayed out. And to this day, that decision gives Russia a unique status on the continent. Unlike France and Britain, Russia carries no colonial scars in Africa, and that history still affects how many African nations view Moscow in the 21st century, not as a former oppressor, but as a potential partner. However, if we try to chart out